As I have been saying throughout this conflict, I think it's safe to say that civilian control of the military de facto doesn't exist anymore in the United States. The military has basically taken the stand at the moment that they can't be involved in domestic politics, which means they can't follow civilian direction. Because the president is the commander in chief. He is the supreme head of the military, and all the soldiers, all the tanks, airplanes, boats, that kind of thing are under his direct command. And we've consistently, since the start of this crisis, seen the military say, no, we aren't under the president's command, either directly or indirectly. And particularly with General Mattis, we have been seeing the military suggest that maybe a time will come where we'll have to do something about Trump to protect the so-called peaceful protesters, that sort of thing. And as I've said many times, no one believes in democracy. Democracy is when you win. So if you win, it's democratic. If you lose, it's not democratic. So I've always said I don't particularly care about democracy. I could care about my values and my political agenda being put forward. I can't help but feel contempt, though, for the people who say they care about democracy, but they obviously don't. So, like in this context, the media is pretty heavily, in my view, calling on Mattis or the military to overthrow Trump at this point in time, or to just abandon him and let the mob in DC come in and throw him out of office. From my understanding, and nobody really knows what's going on, the army pulled out against Trump's orders, or I don't know, it's very confusing, from Washington, D.C., and they had to bring in like federal police from a whole bunch of different agencies, like the Department of Agriculture, to defend the White House. And that the army's more or less said they're not going to do what the president's telling them to do. So, I mean, if you have a country where the military is not accountable to civilian government, isn't that what you call a junta? I mean, where you have like a council of generals who are acting autonomously. I mean, that's like what you had in Turkey and that kind of thing. I guess in this case, though, it's like a lamer version of that. Because rather than have the balls to actually remove Trump for office, and maybe I shouldn't be daring them to do that, but rather than just directly remove Trump, they're just saying we aren't accountable to the president. So let's read through this because this is shocking. So America's top general has apologized for appearing in a photo op with President Donald Trump following the forceful disruption of peaceful protesters. This is CNN, by the way. The peaceful protesters who set the church on fire outside the White House last week, calling the move a mistake and saying its presence created a perception of the military involved in domestic politics. You know what? Leads to the perception the military is involved with domestic politics. You going on like CNN or whatever and publicly criticizing your boss. Like, what the hell is that about? Would that be tolerated in the military? Like, you have a general and he gives an order to like his colonel, and then the colonel just goes on CNN and says, I think like that guy's an asshole who doesn't know what he's doing. Is that really the way the US Army or any army operates? So he's like bad mouthing the president and publicly humiliating him to show. So let's just take a step back and try to dissect this, because it's just sometimes when you're reading this, you're just like, what? Okay, so he's giving an interview attacking the president in order to give to apologize for the military being involved with domestic politics. Okay. So General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said during a pre-recorded speech released on Thursday that he regrets accompanying Trump on a walk from the White House to St. John's Church last week, where he was photographed wearing his combat uniform and moving with the president's entourage. So, like, what is he saying? I shouldn't have done what my boss told me to do? Like, is that how the U.S. Army works? Like, I don't know, lieutenant's like, look, follow me, private. The prime minister's like, no, I don't want to do that. That would give the impression of that I'm involved in domestic politics. The image provoked a swift wave of criticism from lawmakers and several senior former military officials who said that they risked dragging the traditionally apolitical military into a contentious domestic political situation. So, like, if these guys hadn't been in charge of the army, and maybe would have been a good thing during the Civil War, it would have been, look, we get that half the country is leaving, we get they're firing on federal forces, but we don't want to be involved in domestic politics. And putting down half the country rebelling would be getting involved in domestic politics. I mean, that's literally what they're saying here. Someone should ask this guy, was the army getting involved in domestic politics during this? I should not have been there. My presence in that moment and in that environment created a perception of the military involved in domestic politics. As a commissioned uniformed officer, it was a mistake that I have learned from, and I sincerely hope we all can learn from it. Okay, there's a word I'm thinking of that starts with the letter F that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube. Like, what a fucking... Milley also said that he was outraged by the killing of George Floyd and added that the protests it sparked spoke to centuries of injustice towards African Americans. Because he's not, like, this is not getting involved in domestic politics, is supporting riots. I mean, how is this not a coup? Like, I guess it's not, they're not shooting anyone yet, but they're not shooting the people they're supposed to be shooting. The comments mark an extraordinary moment of America's top general apologizing for an appearance with his commander-in-chief and doing so while speaking to a future group of military officials and leaders. I just also want to say, if the day ever comes when the power balance shifts in a more what I would consider better direction, I think pretty much every single member of the media other than Tucker Carlson need to be held accountable. Because here you have, like, CNN calling for a coup. Like, I don't know how else to interpret this. He tends to learn for it. General Milley's comments about the need to keep the military out of politics was timely and all too sadly these days appropriate to the pressures under which these troops labor. He was right to point out that he himself got mixed up in it, he said. We shouldn't lose sight of the importance of what else he said. Too often, the military burdens with a zero defect mentality. They don't make it easy to own up to errors in judgment, Kirby added. They also come after many former leaders publicly. Come with the president on a host of issues, including the use of active duty troops to quell the protest followed by Floyd's death, and renaming the bases named after Confederate generals. So, there's some bases named after Confederate generals, and Black Lives Matter basically demanded that they change the name of them, and Trump said, no, it's my authority as the head of the military. I get to decide what the bases are named. So what the Democrats have done in support of the Republicans is they've tacked on to the military's yearly funding bill that they get to change the bases. And that's just how corrupt the American system is. Just tacking these fucking unrelated amendments. How is changing the names of military bases for political reasons related to the funding of the US budget? Like it's insanity. Okay, so let's see here. Why is Lindsey Graham still around? I don't know. Last week, CNN reported that Esper was on shaky ground with the White House after saying he does not support using active duty troops to police the ongoing domestic unrest and noting that these forces should only be used in a law enforcement role as a last resort. I mean, so people seceding and forming their own country named after a Yu-Gi-Oh character isn't like an emergency. Okay. Esper acknowledged, let's see, I was not aware of the photo op was happening, added. He tries to state as situations which may appear political, and I'm successful with doing that, and sometimes I'm not successful. Milley also addressed the event that sparked the protest, the death of Floyd while in the custody of Minneapolis police, as well as the challenges of racism with the military in American society. I am outraged by the senseless and brutal killing of George Floyd. His death amplified the pain, the frustration, the fear that so many of our fellow Americans live with in and day out. I mean, this is if this is not getting involved in domestic politics, I've never seen it. The protests that have ensued not only speak to his killing, but also to the centuries of injustice towards African Americans, he added, saying that we should all be proud that the vast majority of the protests have been peaceful. So he's saying that he's supporting a domestic insurrection against the president. Um, yeah. So, I mean, let's be honest here. If the situation was reversed, I probably wouldn't be making these arguments. I'm not going to pretend that. I just, for the people who pretend to care about this sort of thing, I'm just calling them out. But obviously, if the situation was reversed, I wouldn't care. I'm just not to be hypocritical. We never introduced federal troops in the streets of America. Let's see here. Only 7% of our flag and general officers are African American. And they're like 13% of America. That's not that bad, actually. Let's see. I think there was another kind of like some other nonsense here. We are. Let's see here. What we are seeing is the long shadow of original sin in Jamestown 401 years ago. So let's see here. Just seeing, there was some other nonsense. Okay. So the Marine Corps banned all public display of Confederate Army battle flags on its bases. And the Navy this week says it plans to ban, so they're banning all of it. All displays of it. From my understanding, I think the traditionally, and this is just from something Serp told me, the Confederate flag and Confederate like soldiers were treated with a degree of like reverence similar to what's given to the American flag and American soldiers. So yeah, it keeps getting worse and worse. I mean, who knows how long this is going to go on? I mean, are we going to get like a Pegasus commune or something in Washington D.C. next, or maybe we're going to get like a Seto, like so like you could get the Seto in Seattle next, which will be like the Seattle East Territorial Occupation. And then next to it'll be the Kaiba. So you'll have the Chaz, the Seto, and the Kaiba. And the Kaiba will be the commune with a K, anarchist, irritable bowel syndrome. So we'll get that. Maybe though, like some edgelords will form like the Jaden or like the Yugi or something. Um, to hit back against this. But yeah, we're living in under a military regime at this point in time. So that's pretty cool. God bless, guys. Try to stay safe out there. The world is going to hell.